Now we move to the West Bank, where Israeli construction on settlements has increased dramatically in 2013, according to a report by Peace Now, a veteran anti-settlement advocacy group. And as you can see in this map, construction of illegal settlements in the West Bank rose by 70% from January to June this year. Now that's compared to the same period in 2012. Now, the report also included a summary of the number and growth of settlements since the 1990s Oslo Accords and the implications this has had on the two-state solution. Today, for example, more than 340,000 I should say, settlers live in the occupied West Bank in settlements, including an increase of 7,700 illegal settlers in the West Bank during the first 6 months of 2013. Now, the push to build deeper into the West Bank, outside the blocks Israel would swap out with the Palestinians, has intensified during Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's premiership. And this week, nearly 1 year after the UN granted Palestine observer status, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas traveled to Europe to push for an Israeli settlement freeze. Now, joining us from Israel to discuss this is Meirav Zonshine. Meirav, thanks for joining us. I want to start by asking you, according to Peace Now, the precise settlements that are growing rapidly is also a key part of this. They say that more than half, for example, of the new settlers who've moved to the West Bank since the Oslo Accords moved to only 3 settlements in particular, and 64% of the growth is in areas that could remain in Israeli control in a return for any sort of agreed land swaps. I mean, what are your thoughts generally about this report and about that specific point?
Hi, Ahmed. Thanks for having me. Well, there's 2 things to think about. I mean, Peace Now is definitely the most accurate body that is documenting settlement growth in the West Bank. So their reports are very, very comprehensive and very precise, and they're doing really great work. But they also have an agenda of promoting a two-state solution and showing the world and Israelis that the two-state solution isn't over. So a lot of the percentages that they were quoting were showing that these aren't irreversible facts. So while it may be true that a lot of the settlers have moved to major blocks, it's also true that the consensus areas, what they call areas where it's a consensus in a future two-state solution that would be part of Israel, are a consensus because Israel has de facto made that reality on the ground. So, if you look at East Jerusalem, which, by the way, isn't included in the 340,000, there's, if you add the settlers that live in East Jerusalem, that's almost 500,000. And if you think about the fact that 1 in every 5 people who lives in the West Bank is a settler, then the story becomes a little bit different.
And when we talk about the story becoming a little bit different, we're currently looking at some of those settlements from an aerial shot. And I think the reason we wanted to play this is sometimes it's hard to really understand just how close they come to some of these villages. As you know, Meirav, settlement expansion has destroyed trust, you could say, with the Palestinians, whether the political leaders or the people. I mean, still, the group Peace Now says it hasn't destroyed the possibility or the prospect of a two-state solution, according to the report. They do say, though, that the longer that the government and settlers have free rein to develop these isolated areas, the more difficult, logistically, a two-state solution will become. What can you share with us about, the mentality behind the government's decision? For example, right when Palestine was given observer state status just a year ago, there was that announcement of new settlements. Now we're seeing that there's a sharp increase in the settlements, even if the international community keeps saying that they're either illegal or they're an obstacle for peace. I mean, how are we to expect that this government is actually wanting peace rather than the status quo of occupation and tension?
Well, there's actually no reason to think that Israel wants peace, and it continues to push that rhetoric, but nothing on the ground actually supports that. So I don't really understand why it is that the world continues to allow this to happen. It's very, very simple to understand that if Israel continues to build in areas, regardless of, whether you have land swaps or whatever deal the fact of the matter is that Israel's policies are sending a direct message, not only of mistrust, but of direct affront. And there are people in Netanyahu's government, his deputy defense minister, openly oppose the establishment of a Palestinian state, and he says so in the pages of the New York Times. So it's not a secret. So, if you look at what's going on, it's not that, if the right things happen, maybe there could be a two-state solution, sure. But if you look at what's happening now in terms of, Israel controls the entire area. And the message that it's sending is that it has absolutely no intention of allowing for the construction of a Palestinian state.